Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. If you're not new here, hi, welcome back. It's great to see you. This is a reading for Capricorn suns, or if you have significant Capricorn placements in your chart and are needing a masculine energy to work with, then this reading is for you. So I was getting a lot of downloads before the reading, Capricorn, about like what this reading was going to be about, what the story was, how it's sort of playing out in the cards. And it was kind of feeling like the aftermath was just kind of the vibe that I was getting, meaning like I feel like you've left or you're out of a difficult situation, whatever that was for you. Like the difficult situation is now in the past, but in your present, it's kind of like you're still dealing with the aftermath or like the consequences of that past difficulty, right? And the reason why perhaps like either you're revisiting that in some way, like you're revisiting that past energy, or just seeing sort of the consequences of what's happening now as a result of whatever that difficult situation was, is kind of how it's coming through. Because the first couple cards we have out here is the overall context. Are these, so first of all, the Three of Quills, which is the Three of Swords, right? That sort of heartbreak energy. I feel like this is the past, right? But it kind of is coming through this energy of nightmares because of what's coming on the other cards, like having perhaps bad dreams or not good sleep or whatever, because you're sort of revisiting this past event that caused heartbreak or trauma of some sort, is kind of how it's feeling. But there's a lot of good news here because you have here the Ace of Parchment, the Ace of Pentacles, and the Three of Parchment, Three of Pentacles, meaning I feel like there are like friends or support or whatever it is here in order to help you go to the next phase, right? To move on to the next whatever it is. This Six of Quills is really interesting. This is the story of Metamorphosis. It's one of the few classic stories that I've read from this deck, but it's talking to me about like, it's almost like you in the past, you left home, for example, you went out into the world, and then something really just like horrible happened, right? Like in your sort of life experience. And then when you're out of that life experience, when you're out of that sort of traumatic event, you come back home and suddenly don't recognize yourself or don't recognize some aspect of yourself because whatever that experience was transformed you in some way, right? Like you transformed while you were in that space. And when you return home, it's kind of just like you don't recognize yourself, or it's like, this is even like waking up from a bad dream and not even sure who you are, or it's just there's a disconnect between your reality, right? Like where you are now and the experience that you just had is kind of what's coming through. So that's the overall context. The really good news though is that right now I feel like what you are in is this cleansing storms period, that you are being cleansed in some way. Like this period, the aftermath, is kind of like this really intense cleansing period in order to prepare you for what you're stepping into, is kind of how it's coming through. And so it's like you're just revisiting this past energy in order to clear something out, is kind of how it's feeling. Like just like cleansing it out, detoxing it, letting it go, whatever it is. But in the process, I feel like it's also returning something to you, is kind of how it's coming through. Like it's like you're getting something back that you lost while you were in there, or that you had to like surrender before you went in there, or whatever it is. And I'll explain sort of how that's playing out in this story. So we're starting off here. This is almost like, because it feels like you're coming full circle, meaning you're returning to the beginning of before whatever this trauma event, I'm just going to call it that. That's for you to fill in for yourself, right? I'm not getting into the specific details of what that could be for you. And again, if you're not ready to revisit that, then this is not your reading. You can go find another one. But this one is specifically centered around some sort of event that was very traumatic for you, or situation, or whatever it is, environment, if you want to call it that. You're not there anymore. You're not there anymore. That's not the space that you're in anymore. But it's coming back around, or like you're at the ending of it, the completion of that cycle. And it's like there's perhaps like a revisiting of like when you first went back, when you were first in that situation to begin with, is kind of how it's coming through. Because here we're starting off here with the Master Maker and the King of Pentacles, which is absolutely your energy. This is before the traumatic event happened, is kind of how it's feeling. This is your energy. Extremely powerful and extremely good at what you do is kind of how it's coming through. Like perhaps having a specific confidence in your skill set or something like that, right? Like it's like the King of Parchment in this the King of Pentacles, right? Like very powerful, very established. And it's kind of coming through actually with this energy of like protection, or like a strength of yours, or that you had some sort of like skill or craft with the Master Maker that was like very, very established within you, is kind of how it's feeling. But you were called into an environment or a situation or something, right? Like you went into something, you were called into it for whatever reason. It's coming through as this richness, marine life, right? So seemingly abundant is kind of how it's coming through. The marine life, richness. You were called into this place, perhaps like a job, right? Maybe like a job, because it's coming through with Pentacles and the Master Maker. This is kind of feeling like a work environment or something like that. You were hired or something. You were put in this place because of your craft, because of your skill, because of all of this like abundant energy that you had. But then it's kind of interesting because it's kind of like there was somebody there, perhaps like this Two of Cups energy, or it's coming at the Two of Quills, right? So this is the Two of Swords, but this look, and it's coming out with the Indie as well, which is kind of like this indecision. Because I feel like once you got in that situation, there was a particular soulmate is kind of how it's coming through, or person or relationship, or if it's not a relationship, it's like something that belongs to you or belongs with you or whatever it is. I'm just going to call it a person for ease. So it's like there was a specific soulmate relationship that you found in this place, right? In this work environment or whatever. But there was something about the environment or something like that that was like, it was not a really positive environment. Like it's just like the environment itself is kind of how it's coming through, was draining or overpowering or really dense or just like full of fear is kind of how it's coming through, or full of difficulty in whatever way, right? It's like whatever this period, that traumatic event was, or that situation that you were in, it's kind of like it wasn't what you expected, or it wasn't like you thought that was perhaps the thing for you, or like the place for you, or whatever it is. But when you got there, it was like it's not at all what you expected. Completely draining, or like something that was like very coming out here with the Hanged Man. It feels like it was like just not it. This is basically what this situation is talking about. Putting you in a difficult position is kind of how it's feeling, because it's like when you went in there, when you were hired, it seemed like it was perfect for you, or it was part of your path. And I want to say that I feel like what this situation is talking about, it's like you're gaining some sort of perspective now about the situation, right? It's like it wasn't the situation itself. Like it wasn't the job that was for you or that was calling you. It was actually whatever this relationship was that was calling you, the significant soulmate. So it's like you were drawn into this place, not because of the pentacles aspect, right? Not because of the work, not because of the job or the whatever, the skill that you had, but you were pulled into that place because of this, because of a significant relationship, meaning that there was something else for you in this space, not the job itself, for example, right? But it's really interesting because it's kind of like in that space that you were in, because it's almost like this one here, because they're coming out with the indie, right? You here went in as the master maker, extremely sure of yourself is kind of how it's coming through. The indie here is the soulmate, right? The other person who is like perhaps less, because this comes in with the energy of indecision, which is just coming through as being like less confident or less sure of themselves perhaps, but they were in that environment. They were in here. They were one of the energies in this crowd, right? And it's like you were brought into this space not for the job, but to get this one out is kind of how it's coming through. You were put into this place to get this one out. And it's like, but there's something here coming through where it's like in doing that, right? The next couple cards to come out here are the Darkness Moon and the Guardian of the Gate, which is this really interesting because it's kind of like I'm seeing that this is like feeling like the escape, right? It's feeling like a narrow escape is kind of what's coming through. Like you got out of there, right? Because this again is just describing a past energy is kind of how it's feeling. It's like I'm sitting here as the reader trying to connect the circle, right? The ending to like close off or like bring closure to you perhaps in this situation of like trying to make sense of why this happened, right? It's because it's like you were brought into a place that was really not a match to you. What was a match to you, why you were brought there in the first place was because of this one, whoever they are. And it's like, but this is the difficulty because I feel like what this Darkness Moon card is talking to me about, it's like you, in going into that place, I'm going to call it a job just for simplicity, you had to almost like protect yourself or protect your light from this environment, because whatever this environment was, it's coming through as being almost like because you have here the Death card in this deck, which is actually it's Dracula, right? It's feeling like in this job you had to protect or shield yourself from the energies in the environment because it was draining to you or like feeding off of you or something like that. It's like feeding off of your light. So in order for you to protect yourself or protect your energy, you almost had to like hide this aspect of yourself is kind of how it's coming through. Like the story and metaphor that's coming through with this is in Harry Potter in the 5th book. It's like one of the more challenging books or stories in that series, but it's kind of like something really terrible happened to him in a previous book, and then he was trying to tell the world about it, right? That's what this is talking about. He was being authentic about perhaps his trauma or his fear or whatever, something that happened to him in a previous story. And the environment was this energy of like, I'm going to call it gaslighting, but that's just one form of how this energy could play out, right? It's like the environment, or like there was a specific teacher or energy there that told him you are telling lies, right? You're spreading fear, you're being inauthentic or whatever, right? So even though Harry was telling the truth, he was speaking his truth, right? But the environment was telling him you're being dishonest, you're lying, and he was punished for it, right? So there was this specific like pen that he was asked to write with that actually used his ink as blood, right? So so he was like writing in his detention, right? As his punishment, he had to write lines I must not tell lies. I must not tell lies. And every time he wrote it, it would get it would basically cut into his skin and create like this scar of like, I must not tell lies, because of the environment. The environment itself was not a space where he could be authentic, right? He couldn't express his truth there. That was the traumatic environment. That's what this is talking about. So it's like, in this environment that you were asked to go into, you had to hide or shield or protect your perhaps authenticity, or something that was like because it's not even it was almost coming through as like, you had to like, in order to protect yourself in this environment, you almost had to like put down or shield or just like remove some aspect of your authenticity, of what makes you who you are, like your confidence perhaps, or like your skill or something like that, something that absolutely makes you shine and glow and all of that. But it's like, you were put into an environment where that light was immediately punished or stomped out or whatever. And so it's like, now that you're out of there, that's the thing. It's like, you had to, with this Two of Cups here, right? It's like, because you were put into this place for this significant soulmate relationship, right? That's what's coming through here. You were put into this place in order to protect this aspect and to get it out of whatever environment, the judging eyes or whatever. It's like there's something here about, it's like having to like protect this light from the environment that would have tried to stomp it out or destroy it or whatever, which is so incredibly difficult. Okay. But then here, this is the aftermath part, right? It's like, you're out of there, or the significant soulmate perhaps is out of there, or something like that. That situation's over. I'm getting emotional, sorry. You have the Death card again, right? So you have the Death card twice in this reading, which I feel like it's actually not coming through with the typical like transition kind of death energy in tarot. It's coming through as like a really horrible ending, or like a really difficult, like narrowly escaping whatever this was, right? And it's like, this one here always talks to me about a shroud, right? Like protecting yourself, because I feel like there's something here where you are now in the aftermath is kind of how it's feeling. You're in this place, which is not the final, like, it's not what you are necessarily wanting, but it's kind of like the Six of Quills is talking about, it's like, before this whole thing happened, you went into a place, you left home. This is what this is talking about. You left home, you went into this job environment, maybe whatever, were transformed there, right? Like extremely difficult transformational process. Then you came back home, metaphorically. And it's like, when you come back home, it's like you've transformed into something that you don't recognize, or that there's like, it was actually coming through, because this story, specifically Metamorphosis, the takeaway that I took from this story is like, did you lose yourself in service to the work, is kind of how it's feeling. Because it's almost like because you went in there because of this craft, right? This skill of yours. But it's almost like, because of that experience that you went through that was perhaps traumatic, or that you were punished for, it's like, now it's like you've this aspect of yourself, this craft, this skill that you have is almost unrecognizable to you now because of the punishment that you received, right? It's like this, because this is the energy telling you, I must not tell lies, right? You were not telling lies. You were trying your best to be authentic, and this energy tried to stomp it out, is what this is feeling like. right? With this insect, they were trying to diminish you or diminish your light or diminish your skill or your craft. And because of that, it's causing perhaps like self-doubt or like, because that's a result of gaslighting, right? If somebody tries to gaslight you, it's like they're telling you that your experience is not valid. It's not authentic, right? That's what they're trying to say, that your expression is inauthentic or not valid or whatever it is, right? That's sort of the energy that's coming through from whatever the experience was that you are now out of, right? It's like this is the aftermath, trying to now sort through which experiences are true and which were a result of this darkness, right? That's kind of how it's coming through. And I feel like that's what this death energy is, because it's kind of like, in order to protect yourself in this environment, you had to temporarily put aside some aspect of your light, right? In order to protect yourself. That's what this is coming through. So it's almost like an example of this. It's like you almost had to like take off your glasses, for example, and put your glasses aside, because in whatever this environment was, it would have just destroyed the glasses, for example, right? Or whatever it is. It's like you had to put aside some aspect of yourself in order to make it through whatever this event was. And so it's like but the thing about this now is that now that you're out of this energy, it's like you have to pick up your glasses again, but you can't see where you left them, is kind of what's coming through with the death card, right? It's like you need your glasses in order to see where you put your glasses, if that makes sense. Like it's like the because it's something like confidence, right? Once you lose your confidence, it's extremely difficult to get that back, because it's like that's the thing that you need in order to get your confidence back. You need confidence in order to get your confidence back, if that makes sense. So it's something like that. It doesn't have to be that exactly. Whatever it is for you, it's like you need to reclaim that aspect of the thing that you put aside, but it's like you can't find it, or it's like it's not something that looks familiar to you anymore, because the experience that you went through was so incredibly difficult or challenging that it's like you don't even recognize what that is anymore, perhaps. Or it's like it's become distorted in some way, because this card's also coming through with kind of this energy of like, I don't know, it's like the environment put some sort of like a spell or like a shroud, or like you're just covered with something, is kind of how it's coming through. Like there's like dirt, or I don't know what it is. I don't know. But the good news is that you have this inner core solidity, right? It's like this, I love this card so much, because it's like somebody, perhaps a group of others, right? You have here the Three of Light coming out next, which is the Wizard of Oz, right? Which, if you think about the Wizard of Oz, there's like the lion that lost the heart, or like the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, whatever it is that they're missing. They're each missing something. They each have misplaced something that makes them who they are, right? Like the courage or the intelligence or whatever. I don't know what all the other things are, but it's kind of like this traumatic experience, whatever it was, took something from you that makes you who you are. And it's like that is now being returned to you through like your friends or support or whatever it is, right? Like because what's coming out next is this Bright Mother. So I'm seeing this as kind of like two things, where it's like, because it's coming out right after this Death card. So it's coming out like this, where it's like, this is the thing that you misplaced, but you can't see it because you need that thing in order to get that thing back, is kind of what this is talking about. That makes sense. You need to be able to see in order to see where you put your glasses. And it's like this one here is holding it out for you, or like returning it to you in some way, or reminding you, or guiding you, or whatever. But at the same time, it's also like you are transforming into this. It's like once the shroud is removed, because the next card out you have is this transformation pressure, right? Which I always see is sort of like going through like a car wash, or like having all of this sort of like gunk, or it's like cobwebs, right? Like really sticky cobwebs kind of like being forcefully removed from your being, because this is who you are really, right? This bright mother, this aspect of you, I want to say like full authenticity, but it's like you couldn't be this in this environment, whatever that was. You are out of this environment now, or you will be stepping out of it if it hasn't happened yet. But it's like this aspect of self wants to be reclaimed, or like re-identified, or it's like bringing that back to you through whatever this, like perhaps like friendships, or like other soulmates, or like that specific relationship that you got out of, or like that you pulled out of that space, right? Your Two of Cups, whoever that is for you. And it's like you are moving on to the next thing. The next cards though, because I feel like here, the Nine of Quills, what may be difficult or challenging, because this is the Nine of Swords, and it also comes in with this, with the story Macbeth, right? Because it's kind of like, so Nine of Quills, Nine of Swords, which is anxiety. Because it could be something like you may be experiencing sort of like the nightmares, or revisiting that past energy of like perhaps actions that you took, or like experiencing perhaps the consequences of things that happened while you were in that dark place, because you are not your full authentic self. Perhaps you did things that you now feel shame about, or like regret about, or like you just don't want to look at it, right? You would rather not face those difficult challenges, right? Again, because there's either shame associated with it, or regret, or it's like if you were in your full self, you would do that again, or you would do it better. But it's almost like what this card is trying to say to me anyway, as the reader for you, because the King of Light's coming out next, that this honesty with self is really important in order to bring you into the next transformation. Because it's kind of like you were starting as the King of Pentacles, right? The King of Parchment. So I'm seeing these as being like, this is how you started the journey. This is how you're ending it, as the King of Cups, right? King of Pentacles into the King of Cups, which is like this earthy perhaps thing, right? Like it's like so I feel like you're reclaiming some aspect of your skill, or whatever it is that you went into that environment with, right? You still are that, right? You still have that, or that's part of what's being returned to you. But at the same time, you're also being transformed into this King of Cups, right? So like perhaps like mastering some aspect of your emotions or something like that, or an emotional experience, but you would not have reached this level of mastery. You would not have reached this level of mastery if you had not done this, or if you had not gone through these difficult experiences, or did things that you regret, or when it's almost like you had to put on this shroud in order to complete the transformation, right? You had to act in a way that was not like you in order to know truly who you are, because it's like you were acting from a place perhaps in this past energy of something that was not like you. You are not this energy. You are not where's that card? You are not that the Metamorphosis. This is not you, right? That's not you. But while you were in that place, you were forced to act in a way that was not authentic to you. And so it's like this energy is coming in to remind you that all of this is being shed, right? It's like you're being transformed. And in the process, it's like stirring up all the anxiety, or all the decisions that you now regret. And the thing about regret and remorse and all of that, it shows that you've changed, that you've matured, perhaps, or like you've evolved. Because it's showing that if you were put in that situation again, you would act differently. You would do something different. You would not be sort of whatever this one was, or this energy was, or this behavior was, if that makes sense. Okay, that's a long reading. I'm going to end it there, Capricorn. We're going to go to the extended. If you're interested, the link is in the description box below. If you're interested in a personal reading, you'll also find my website below. If this message resonated with you, please consider liking, subscribing, or leaving a comment. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.